Hi, Rigsters here, now back with an Automation the Car Company Tycoon game. Now, I've covered this game before in the past as well when I first started this channel, but I saw in the poll that I did 2 weeks ago that there was some interest in seeing this game, so I decided to cover it again. They have changed some things, mostly in the design and vehicle aspects. I personally play this game. This is design cars. I don't usually do the campaign, and I export it to NextDrive or Beam NG. So if you own this game and Beam NG, you can actually export your design over to that game if you own both of them. And I've done that as well in the past, prior to learning at least hopefully better video quality. And not just mean video length, but like in general. So I'll just show you the car designer and just use it like a sandbox. Now, of course, you can also do challenges with all sorts of tutorials if you want to do like a design one, which is pretty cool, you know? You can do all sorts of stuff. But for now, I just will start with car designer. And I just hit. Now there's all sorts of tags here. Yeah, this is what I was doing some various tuning and different designs. And we'll save that as well. We're going to do a new car model. Now, I typically will do the 2020s, the latest this game goes, which is slightly ironic because it's now the year 2021, but that is definitely the time period they went with. If you want to know the oldest time period they went with, I think it was 1945 or 1950 post-war. That's the oldest you can do in this game. Yeah, 1946, I think. Yep, it's 46. So post-World War II technology cars all the way to 2020. So for this one, I want to make a 1990s car because I love 90s cars. I'm really big on those. I think they were probably the best generation of cars ever made, but that's just an opinion thing. I also like cars from other eras as well, but that's just my preference. And I do see a lot of people make, sports cars or go, oh my god, I made a 2,000 horsepower W6 Titan. No, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you the real stuff. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to design a van. Yes. That's right. If you're looking for a supercar for this video, sorry. Sorry to disappoint you. Go look elsewhere. That's just what I'd say, but I shouldn't be that mean about it, but that's just how I run. So, after you select your body design of this van, I'm going to at least make it a little interesting, but I'm going to make it realistic too. So that means, for example, we're not going to put carbon fiber in a van. It's really cool for concept and race cars, but in the 90s, vans weren't made with carbon fiber. It is cool for memes though, but no. And we'll call this, you can name this vehicle as well, along with the sub-trim, the engine name, and its sub-trim if you do a campaign, or you want to organize your fleet of vehicles either through sandbox or non-sandbox modes. So I don't really know what an interesting name is, but I will just put, for example, Rigsters van, and I'll just name it, for example, just a generic name of vanner. Because why not? It describes what it is. So you can make it all sorts of panel materials here. Of course, like I was joking, carbon fiber. You can do ancient, well, it's not really ancient. You can do steel, treated steel, and so on and so forth. And it changes the look of your chassis a little bit as well, as you can see. Oh my goodness. Oh man, that is just too funny though. I will admit, carbon fiber van in 1995, sign me up. That's impractical though. I'm gonna make it probably treated steel, if that's right. You can, if you're confused of what it is, or you want some lore or realistic lore of like how this stuff actually works, clicking on the question mark is a very useful thing to do. It also gives you some reasons why you would pick this, and also why you wouldn't want to pick it. If you want to see the stats, you just hover over here. You can see like production units, that's for the campaign. Weight is what you're more worried about. Tone cost, campaign stuff, same thing with materials. Safety and corrosion if you want to max out your build, min max, stuff like that. Engineering time is campaign mode, so anything that's related to campaign mode, I'm just going to simply gloss over, but that's what you would have to watch for. Chassis type. Well, if you look underneath the vehicle here, it should show differences here. Oh, yes, it does. So if you zoom in with the mouse wheel and hold down the right mouse button, you can kind of see a little bit of differences on the underside of the vehicle. You can do like ladder, monocoque, space frame, or light truck monocoque. I'm gonna probably do monocoque. Yeah, it's a major reason most cars are made for this. Yeah, monocoque would be more realistic of what they would use in a van from the 90s. Light truck would also be like if you wanted like a high-end premium one, because if you make a monocoque, it weighs like that. If you do light truck, it weighs more, but it's a little bit more durable. It's a really small change in the safety. It's slightly safer, but it weighs a lot more. But the engineering time is less, for example. Chassis materials is also important. You can do like galvanized, all the way to carbon fiber. Yeah, no, just kidding. I think corrosion resistant steel is what they would use. Yeah, that would make sense, because cars from the 90s started using a lot of galvanized and corrosion resistant steel design. And although this was not as popular with vans, but it was used, front traverse means basically just placing the engine sideways, or you can place it lengthwise. A lot of vans from the 90s started using traverse. Longitudinal was slowly going on its way out. So we'll use traverse. Piercing strut. Yeah, they usually would use that or double wishbone for suspension design, which would make sense. Now on the rear, I think they would use leaf or semi-trailing arm. Torsion beam would be for the more luxurious one. Torsion beam, it's a little weird. Double wishbone also would work. It's definitely not multi-link or push rod. Those I definitely don't think would happen. So we're gonna do solid axle leaf, because this is going to be like a mid-trim van. And let's do a new project here. So now we're on the engine screen here. We're going to put in an inline 6. I'll name it Big 6, just for giggles. Family name is 6 cylinder. Variant name, I'll name it Mark 1. I can't spell cylinder to save my life. There we go. You can name it whatever you want, but there we go. I'll just name it like that. You can just change the name and make it whatever you want. It's not really matter what you name it for the campaign, by the way. They don't really care. It's just for you to be organized or whatever you want. It's a sandbox. Do what you want, you know. Now, the important question is, do I do an inline 6? No. That wouldn't make sense. I think the V60, if I remember correctly. I think it was either that or is it the V90? Is it the V90 or the... What's cheaper? Yeah, the inline V60. Alright. Yeah, so 60 degrees. So basically what that means is it tilts the engine from 60 degrees to 90 degrees. Yeah, that's too exotic for a mid-trim van. So we're going to do 60 degrees. Block material affects weight and tooling cost and prestige in the main campaign. We're going to do cast iron because that's traditional. And for family capacity, This affects engine horsepower and torque and all sorts of stuff. You can make it really big if you want to, but I think that's way too big. Most fan engines were more like in the cubic centimeters, more like, let's do 4. Yeah, let's keep it in the 4s. Let's do like 4.2 on there. I use kind of weird measurements for this game. You can customize that in the settings. You can make it like all imperial or all metric. I kind of use a mixture of both because I usually simulate cars and I use various measurements. Heads and valves is important, of course, for the engine designer. I'm going to use 3-valve overhead cam. Nah, actually, let's go 4. Let's be a little bit fancier. It's a mid-trim, so let's do an overhead there. Head material, going to make that cast iron. And variable valve lift. Yeah, some fans did have that, so we'll put that on there. And for the crank, we'll do, let's see here. How much weight is it? Yeah, cast iron. And for the con rods, this is very important for durability, so how high or low you can rev it. We'll do, let's do heavy duty forged. No, heavy duty cast. Yeah, let's do heavy duty cast. And for the pistons, I think if I'm looking here, I'm looking at this chart for max torque and max RPM. That's really what I'm looking at alongside of weight. Usually I do forged. Hypertonic cast is usually not good, but it's like a very compromised middle ground. You can do it in certain builds, but I just don't find them as effective. Low friction cast is good for fuel economy. I could do that, but you can't do a lot of power and torque. Yeah, let's do low friction cast. We've got to save some fuel. And also, if you notice this quality thing right here, I kind of call it a cheat code, but you can do whatever you want with this. If you put it towards the plus, it makes it better, but more expensive to build and produce in campaign. Do negative, it reduces weight and lower production units sometimes, but it also makes it junk. So the reliability can lower depending on how much you mess around with this. I'm just going to keep those on 0. Now compression, let's keep it a conservative amount. Reason why you want to do that is because your engine will knock and reduce power and could cause a lot of reliability problems. You don't want that to happen. Cam profile I'm going to raise up to 50 just to start. And the VVL profile if you put variable valve lift. This affects engine timing as well. I'm going to do 70. And I'm also going to have variable valve train as well. That will increase power and performance and fuel economy. But it does cost a little bit. I'm going to add that on there. Naturally aspirated, no turbo. And we're going to put carburetors. No, just kidding. You could do that though. There were some 90s cars, at least in the early 90s, that actually did have carburetors, but by this point in time, most people use either single or multi-port electronic fuel injection. I'm going to do multi-point because this is a more advanced 6-cylinder. I'm going to do standard intake. And here, you can see like how it looks. If you put twin, it looks like that for multi-port. You can do like a really racy first cylinder. You can also do performance intake if you want, or you can do race, which looks like that. Changes cosmetic and a lot of parameters. I'm going to put back on standard and single. And for fuel type, this is very critical. We're just going to do regular gas. And the fuel mixture it's hitting at, you could do up to 12.2. Let's do 13.5 for the fuel mixture, because you don't want to run it too rich if you want fuel economy, but it can also help with throttle response as well. The rev limit, I'm going to make it 5,500 just to start with. Headers for the exhaust system, let's do short cast. That looks reasonable. Tubular is too racy. Long tubular looks like this, and race is like, what? Why would you want that for a van? that you're trying to make somewhat realistic here. Now, exhaust diameter, you have to really play around with this. I'm thinking it's going to make about 277 horsepower, but make it compatible up to 325. Catalytic converter. This is for reducing emissions. Let's do a 3-way because we want to be nice to people and the environment. Muffler reduces noise, but also can sap power. Straight through is the best compromise for power. We're going to do reverse flow on the first end and none on the second. Oh, there we go. So this actually is a pretty good engine off the bat. I might tweak it just a little bit here though. Might raise the compression to 9 and 5. Oh. Let's see if we can do that. Oh, nope, that's too high. If you can see right here on this chart, it indicates you're losing power or going to have problems. Going to reduce that just a little bit. And maybe I'll raise the cam profile just a little bit. Or maybe lower it. No, it's too low. It starts knocking. Yeah, if you lower the cam profile too much, you won't be able to compress the fuel as much. So let's do... Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, what if I raise this just a little bit more? Do like 0.80 for the VVO. Let's see, okay. And then go back down. Yeah, I may smooth out that torque a little bit. There we go, 71. That's good. We'll keep moving along here. Let's see if I raise the rev limit. If you want to be really silly, you can actually just keep going until your con rods blow out right there. So, no, you can't do 7,000 RPM, sorry. So, let's lower it to... Let's see here. Let's lower it to 5,500 again. And let's increase the fuel mixture to 13.2. And let's raise the compression just a little bit. Because I'm looking at this Ron thing right here, and we have some space. Or at least we did have some space. It looks like, yeah. That's strange, yeah. There we go. That's plenty. Alright, now we can move on to the next part of the phase. Let's just do a quick engine test with manual. And you could also do an automatic test, which does this. Yeah, it sounds nice and comfortable. It's not too loud, it's not too quiet. Now, when you go to the next tab, this is where you can do various trim looks and also fix the weight and how much you can carry. We're definitely doing a people mover, because why not? We're moving people. And over here, you can adjust paint. You can change all sorts of stuff. You can, like, do, like, a new paint here. You can, like, paint it blue. All sorts of colors. You can get really crazy with these colors. Doesn't really affect the campaign outside of the chassis trim choice. Paint it, like, a greenish color. And hit finish editing paint. And go on to the next screen. Now, the only thing you really got to do for bare minimum is slap on a grill in the front and call it a day. If you want to do the bare minimum. You don't need to put on lights either, which is kind of funny. I find that kind of unrealistic, to be fair, or to be frank. Whoops. Let's put this grill right here. There we go. Let me delete that, actually. That looks hideous. Alright, let's put on just a random grill right now. Just to speed up time and stuff. There we go. And that's it. That's all you can do for the bare minimum. But you can add so many things like headlights, taillights, grills, vents, indicators, fuel caps. You can add a lot of stuff. Now you can select your drive type. This is for drive terrain. I'm going to do front wheel drive. And you can do like automatic or advanced automatic. Advanced automatic is a more computerized fluid clutch called a turbo converter. Yeah, you can do all sorts of stuff as well. Normal automatic is a little cheaper. Yeah, I'll just do the cheaper automatic and give it like a 4-speed. What's the max theoretical speed? 140 miles an hour. No, let's do like 130. And spacing adjusts the gear ratios. Unfortunately, you can't tune them individually. That would be cool, but this is close enough. Differential don't really need to mess with, but if you want off-roader or race car, you can put on better differentials. If you're doing race car, you want to do geared or viscous. If you're doing an off-roader, you can do like automatic or manual locking. If you wanted some off-road capability for extra traction. Tires, cross-ply is ancient technology. Don't use that. Use radial. You could do cross-ply if you really want to save money, but by this point in time of car design, they use radial, and it's much safer too. So we'll do hard long life for, long life. We'll increase the tire width just slightly, the 225s. It can decrease or increase this. You can also increase the tire diameter, which I'll do by 1. Yeah, 2 clicks is fine. You can offset the rims. You can make them bigger or smaller. I'm going to do 15-inch. That's pretty typical for this period. 16s sometimes also works. You can change the rib material. You can make it, lighter weight, more prestige. If you do the campaign, I'm just going to keep it steel. Now, brakes are pretty important. You can do drum, 2 leading shoe, single leading shoe. Single leading shoe is really old. They're only used for the rear nowadays, if at all, for most vehicles. But there are some vehicles that still use 2 leading shoe brakes, but usually they're on the rear. Solid disc would be most appropriate. Could do a 2-piston there and make it, let's make it 10-inch. And then on the rear, we'll use a drum with a single leading shoe and make it 8-inch. Actually, let's make it 9, so it's a little more balanced. Now, you can play around with these and look at all sorts of stats and stuff for these as well. Not going to go too much into that, but that's what you can do. The bigger the size of the brakes, the more resistant to fade and more stopping power they have on paper. The lower the brakes, the lower the weight, and lower the cost for a campaign. If you put the pad type towards race, this helps with fade resistance and more braking power, and makes it more sporty or more fun to drive, but we want a little bit more comfort, so we'll do 45. Brake bias, I usually just do 60% front and 40% rear. That helps with drivability. You want it to be kind of equal or slightly cantered towards the front for most builds. If you're really crazy or you want to do something cool, you can make it towards the rear if you want to make it more tail happy. Under trays for aerodynamics, I'm going to do, we can do like a semi-clad because we are a slightly futuristic 90s van. Definitely want cooling flaps. If you have that as an option for just sandbox building, that really helps with aerodynamics. It adds a little bit of weight and a lot of material cost if you're doing a campaign, but it's well worth it. Now this is really important, is cooling airfoil. I want to make sure it matches required cooling for game balance reasons and also for campaign reasons. I'm going to do just 1 notch above, just even though that adds a little bit more drag, that'll give me some brake airflow if I need that. That helps if you don't want to spend money on better brakes, but you want it to cool better. If it's convertible, you can do that here. You can change how many seatings you want. Since we're doing moving people here, the plus is like a temporary jump seat. We're gonna actually do a 6-seater van with either standard or premium. Let's do premium. This is like a mid-trim van. And you can also do entertainment. You could go all the way from none to luxury CD. Yeah, pop in them CDs. Let's do a standard cassette. It also can tell you some differences here. And also some lore reasons as well. Let's actually do a premium cassette player. Because this is like, you know, not a CD playing fan, but we want to at least have them a little entertained. Just for lore reasons. Now, power steering, this is very useful. We're going to do hydraulic power steering with ABS, because traction control is in its infancy. We're going to keep it just ABS. We definitely want to be safe, so at the bare minimum, let's do standard 90s. This affects weight and production cost as well. Traction aids do actually matter in Beam MG. Before I go from the screen, if you put traction control in ABS, you'll have that as an option. If you don't, well, you only have anti-lock. And the power steering thing does affect handling in that game as well. So if you want to be able to turn better at really low speeds, at the bare minimum, put on hydraulic. Suspension, well, this is how you set up your comfort of your ride, or how aggressive you want it. I usually do progressive to start with. That's usually realistic. Hyperdynamic is French, which is really cool, but it's really expensive. Air springs is actually used in real life these days, but mostly on trucks, at least in the States. But that is an option. Yeah, only sports cars and hypercars in the 90s had active suspension, outside of like prototypes and really high-end cars. There were some lower end sports cars that also had like a form of active suspension, but that didn't really become as popular until like the mid 2000s, like 2010 or newer, when that became more commonplace and cheaper to make. So I'm gonna do progressive. Gas monotube is what they usually will use, and in real life that's still a very common one, but cars have been changing slowly towards adaptive or semi-active, depending on the car and price. Passive sway bars are fine. We're going to tune this for normal. And that does a preset here, so this usually, if you do comfort, that also changes how the suspension and the spring's set up. Yeah, let's just do normal for now. That's fine. And there you have it. This is the van design. Let's check the drivetrain real quick just to make sure it's not slipping too much. That is the fuel economy. Oh, that's not too bad. If I do maybe a little more spacing or less spacing. Yeah, there we go. Alright, let's just do that here and just wrap this up here. So basically once you do all that, you get like a list of design stats, like your power, for example, what you built, what's the weight distribution, your markets you can reach if you played the campaign, detailed stats if you really want to go into like your score. Sportiness, of course, obviously does not have anything worth anything. I should probably check the brakes real quick just to make sure. Oh, let's check the I for info. Brake force is low. Consider raising. Oh. Alright, well, I guess I'll make the brakes a bit better. We'll go to 50%. There we go. We'll just do that real quick. This is a final touch-up. You can spend hours playing this game, fine-tuning it. The suggested engine and aero thing is also pretty cool as well. That also helps. You can do like a little test track if you want. This is just a little 2D object that just goes around and it gives you a lap time. This is like all your performance stats here, like how fast it goes, 0 to 60, angles, brake fade, all sorts of neat stuff there. You can do a description on the trim if you want. I'm not doing that. And we'll go to the next panel. And here's like your breakdowns of your cost and all sorts of neat stuff. I don't really want to go too much into it because I wanted to show one last thing. You can export to another game. Now this feature is cool. You can export it to BeamNG, and you can name the mod as well, and you can export it. I'm not going to actually click on that, but you can do that. That's how you can export your vehicle to BeamNG. So that's about it for this video. Okay. So that's Automation, the car company Tycoon game. Hope you enjoyed this video. This is Rigsters Journey, signing off.